Welcome to Valentia Photography Workshops. This video is about what is a RAW file and how to open one in Adobe Camera Raw processor inside Photoshop CC 2020. Hi, so the first thing we need to answer is, what is a RAW file? It's the unprocessed image file from your camera. Many of the settings that you will expect to have in the photograph are not set in there yet, as they might be with a JPEG file. Think of the RAW file as the negative version of the image, although it's actually a positive photograph. With the negative under an enlarger in the darkroom, you can make lots of changes to the tones and the colors and the brightness, the exposure, and that will be eventually set into the image when the photograph is printed. So think of the JPEG then as the finished print, if you like, or the digital version of a print. So with an unprocessed file, you can make lots of changes, or at least more easily perhaps, and you'll have more control over them than you would with a JPEG. So when you're photographing your images, think about photographing them as both RAW and JPEG if you're just starting out, and maybe RAW if you're familiar with editing processes in software such as Photoshop and Lightroom. So let's talk about how to get your unprocessed RAW file into the Adobe Camera Raw, which is a very powerful editing tool for RAW and processed files now, but works very well with RAW images. So here we are in Photoshop with a blank UI, user interface. And this is actually quite a simple process. So I'll look for a RAW photograph. When you're looking for your RAW files, think about the file extension, which is the letters or the numbers after the dot. I'm using Canon RAW files, so I will be looking for a CR2 file. And then basically all you have to do is find the file that you want to work on and double click it. And that automatically opens up in the Adobe Camera Raw processor, if it's a RAW file to begin with. I'll close this one down and just show you another way to do it. Well, it's basically, I'm going to show you the same thing, but with more than one file this time. So we might want to look at several files. So I'm going to Control click and just select files to work on. Again, click open. And now we've got 4 files in this case open in Adobe Camera Raw, and we can use the thumbnail at the bottom to decide which photograph we're going to work on, and then process it using the Adobe Raw processor. And it's really as simple as that. You can toggle the screen full or minimized depending on how you want to work. There is another way. If you have Adobe Bridge, and personally I don't use it much these days, but if you have Adobe Bridge, then you can simply find the file from the directory in Bridge and do exactly what I was doing earlier. Maybe click and then shift click at the end of the selection that you want. Right click, open, they will all open in Adobe Camera Raw. I did get a warning there about whether I wanted to open all 17 files. It's assuming that there's quite a lot to work on. And that's it. Look out for your own RAW file extensions so you'll know what which ones are RAW and which ones are JPEG. So the file extension obviously for JPEG is often JPG, and for the RAW files, the Nikon RAW files are usually .nef. Canon are usually .cr2. Sony can be .sr2 or .arw, and Adobe have their own RAW file type, which is DNG for digital negative, and that's a kind of a universal RAW file which you can convert your proprietary file types to that, just in case the file types belonging to your camera maker are no longer available, and the DNG files will then work with any Adobe software in the future. Hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next time.